Hi there once again. Welcome to In Search of Miracles. In this second episode, we're going to hear from Rita Castillo. Rita already had an 11-month-old child, was pregnant with her second, was having a healthy pregnancy until something happened, and her baby was born at 25 weeks. We're going to hear her journey, and we're going to hear about her miracle. Again, if you want to share your stories with us, feel free to contact me on social media at Ruben Villarreal. You can also email me at ruben.villarreal@kgns.tv. I'm looking for stories of miracles that may have happened in your life so I can share them with others and we can provide some hope for those who hear your story. So again, if there's a miracle in your life and you want to tell me about it, make sure you reach out to me. Thanks for watching, and here's Rita's story. Enjoy. For sharing your story with us. Let's pick up the story right before everything happened. From what you've told me, you were pregnant with your second child.
Yes.
You had an 11-month-old, correct?
Yes.
And you were on your way to the next child.
Yes,
right?
I was happy, I was healthy, everything was good.
Okay, so you got an 11-month-old girl, correct?
Yes.
And pick it up from there. What was going on?
On the night of October the 20th, I did my whole bedtime routine with my oldest baby, and I went through full-blown labor with my first one, so I knew what a contraction felt like. And right before bed, literally right before stepping into bed, I felt a horrible contraction, and I was like, oh, this was weird. This is not okay. And then it just went away. And I turned on Family Feud, and I fell asleep like a baby. And I waited for my husband to get home, and okay, good night, love you, bye. And that's it.
How many weeks were you pregnant at this
25 weeks and 4 days.
25 weeks. And what's the normal pregnancy?
39 weeks
39
is full term.
Weeks, you're 25.
Yes,
okay.
I was 25. So at that time, her sight wasn't developed. Her ears weren't fully developed either. So she was just tiny. She was super, super tiny. So around 3 a.m, I went to the restroom like any pregnant woman would go, pushing on your bladder. And as soon as I sat up, I felt something weird gushing out. And I was like, that's weird too. So I went to the restroom, and sure enough, there was blood everywhere. And composed myself, went to my husband. I was like, don't freak out, because if you freak out, I'm going to freak out. We need to go to the hospital like now. Call my in-laws. We need to go now. And we got there to the hospital, and they checked me in. My contractions were about 1 to 2 minutes apart. So it was consistent. And
1 to 2 minutes apart means you're on your way to deliver.
Yes.
But she's only 25 weeks.
Yes.
So this should not be happening.
It shouldn't be happening. Okay. I shouldn't be at the hospital at
Plus
that time.
You were bleeding.
And I was bleeding. I was bleeding pretty bad. So by the time they hooked me up, we're going to take all these samples, blood samples, urine samples, everything. They told me, go ahead and call into work because you're not getting up. You're bleeding too much. So they had me on my bed. I called my mom. My mom and brother were here right away. And I stayed there in bed, going through the pain. And they hooked me up to this monitor that you're able to see the contractions and hear the heartbeat. Well, it wasn't on right. I don't know how, I don't know why it wasn't. They were telling me, no, you're not having contractions. It's not contractions. So, okay, I'm trusting the nurses. Mm-hmm. So I stayed there in bed, bleeding. I couldn't get up to go restroom, and all I wanted to do was actually go restroom. I had the sensation I needed to poop, and that's usually a sign of you need to push. You're ready to push the baby out. Okay. So finally another nurse comes in because they couldn't find the vein. It's all a blur. A year later now, pieces come back to me that are like, oh, that's what happened, that's what happened, that's what happened. So
it's a blur because you were out of it?
It was a traumatic experience. Okay. It was horrible. Okay. It was very traumatic.
How were you feeling at the time? I mean, you were in pain, you said, right?
Pain, very excruciating pain in the back and in my stomach, weak, because I was losing so much blood, and scared. I was terrified, but at the same time, I was just like, everything's going to be okay.
And mentally,
you were
trying to stay calm.
I was trying to stay calm, which I think I did a pretty good job.
Yeah. Okay, so then?
So another nurse finally comes in to assist with finding another vein for some more fluids, and she goes, check the monitor. She's already had 3 to 4 contractions and I haven't even been here for 5 minutes. and they check it and they're, let's go call the doctor. Mind you, he was already delivering a baby. He comes in, checks me, and he goes, get her in now. She's 10 centimeters, so that means I was already fully dilated for me to push. Get her in now. Didn't have time to say bye to my mom, didn't have time to say bye to nobody. It was just, literally in seconds, I was in the surgical room. And my mom was waiting for me outside, and she was like, you're gonna be okay, you're gonna be okay. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna be okay. And they let me know, you know, you're not gonna hear her cry. You're not gonna hear anything because we're gonna put you completely under. You're bleeding too much to even put an epidural in. We're late. We need to get her out fast. So I was out. I just took a breath, did a little prayer, and I was out. I woke up 2 hours later in the recovery room by a nurse that was, you know, ma'am, Miss Castillo, ma'am. And I was kind of like out of it still because of drugs. And I was like, yes, where's my baby? Where is she? Ma'am, there's no time. We're trying to keep her stable. She needs a blood transfusion ASAP. You need to sign these papers. And I was like, what are you talking about? Ma'am, there's no time to talk. She's okay. We're trying to keep her alive. Get these papers signed. She needs a blood transfusion. Don't, you told me twice. Signed it. Funny story is, I did an ACTS retreat. That nurse was the one that came to tell me. She was a nurse at the ACTS retreat. I never met her in my life. I didn't, that day that she was, you know, sign the papers. I didn't know her. Until later on while I was visiting my baby in the NICU. I said, did you do an ACTS retreat? And she goes, yes. I said, you were my nurse in the ACTS retreat. And she was a nurse that came in and told me to sign the papers for the blood transfusion. So she signed it. They finally took me into a recovery room hours later. I hadn't spoken to my family. I didn't know that they knew what was going on. My mom at the time knew what was going on because she was able to see her leave the room, and they were bagging her up. And, you know, she doesn't tell me too much because that's her story of how she saw her granddaughter, and it was painful. So finally my family comes in, and then the doctor comes in and explains that I had something called placenta abruption. So the placenta tore from my uterine wall. That usually happens in a bad car accident, in a horrible fall. Nothing of me just getting into bed. I didn't pull anything. I didn't feel anything. I was working, you know, with my daughter too, had my job. I was good. Everything was good. Why did it happen? I don't know. And he also told me, you had 2 baseball-sized cysts behind each ovary. We're getting them sent to pathology to me. And I was just like, great. Like, what more can happen? Was this and I was like, was that the cause? Was it because of my ovaries that this happened? No, like, stay calm. It's not it. So they finally let me go see her, but they prepared me for the worst. You're not going to see her comfortable. You're not going to see her happy. You're not going to hear her. You cannot touch other than just very softly, no noise, minimal, everything, because they're so sensitive. So you're not allowed to look at any other babies. Don't ask questions. Just go straight to where we're going to tell you to go.
Let me interrupt you real quick. So your first child was delivered normally? Everything was fine with your first child?
Yes.
What is going through your mind when you come to? I mean, at what point do you realize, okay, I just delivered a 25-week-old baby? What's going through your mind, or did it ever register at that point?
It never registered. I didn't want to lose her. And then I was like, am I sick? Like, is there something wrong with me? And now I got to take care of myself. And if she doesn't survive, am I going to survive? Because I can't lose her. I can't.
Was there any indication to you physically that you had cysts? I mean, with no symptoms, nothing.
Nothing. I did my daily checkups, my monthly checkups, and she was happy. She was healthy. She moved more than my first daughter in my stomach. I was like, ooh, she's so active. Like, ooh, can't wait till she comes out. She's gonna give me trouble. And there was no indications. Was
your first baby delivered naturally or C-section?
C-section. She was breech, and so was the one that I recently have, Andrea. Her name's Andrea. She was breech as well.
And so when they delivered Andrea at 25 weeks, was she delivered naturally as well? Or, I mean, was she delivered C-section as well? Did they take her out?
They had to, yeah.
Okay.
There was no way they were going to deliver her feet first. If she was already having complications and I lost so much blood, they weren't going to risk it. So it was an emergency C-section.
So that should have been obvious to me, but I don't know much about pregnancy. So, okay, so then continue. So then they're preparing you for what? you're about to see. 'Cause,
Yes.
do you know about the development? Like, were you aware about where
Yes.
they are at 25 weeks and all that?
Yes.
So you did.
So at the time,
Yeah.
of course not. I'm not thinking about,
Right.
okay, she's 25 weeks, she should be doing this, she should be doing this, and like the milestones. I'm not thinking about none of that. I'm just scared, in tons of pain, like excruciating pain, because not only did they cut me all the way open to take her out, they also messed with my ovaries. They had to, do more work. So my first delivery, my mom would always tell me, you want to go see your daughter, you want to carry her, you need to walk. And they want me walking. So then one of the nurses told me, Mija, show them that you're strong enough, because when you go in there, you'll probably break. And you need to be strong, because if you're not ready, they will send you back to your room. You're not going to see your daughter. So I was like, okay. Oh, for sure. I can be strong. Here I was, I'm strong.
Let's do this.
In here, I was dying. I was not ready. So I told my mom, wheel me halfway and I'll walk halfway so they can see that I'm walking. So the whole process going in, you have to be, rang in. You have to, like, if you're going into surgery, scrub all the way up to your elbows, gown yourself up. And they told me she's way at the far end. So when I finally finished all that and I see a priest, I'm gonna grab some tissues.
Yes,
I see a priest and I get super mad, like angry, because the first thing that came to mind was she's dying. Why else would they have a priest here? So they were gonna baptize her. And I had told my mom wasn't there. I probably would have freaked out and been like, no, like, let me just go back to my room. I'm not gonna see this. And she's like, Mija, it's okay. They're doing it because just in case. And all the nurses were like, we're not saying she's dying. Relax. But, we want to do this if you let us, just in case. So it took me a while, and I stood there and I looked at her and I was like, this is how you guys greet me, with a priest gonna baptize her? They're like, just calm down. She's okay. We're gonna baptize her if you want to. And I'm like, my mom's like, you won't regret it. Do it. And I'm like, okay. So they baptized her. They couldn't touch her, so they barely put a drop of holy water. So they didn't do the complete, baptism, sorry. And I stood there and I just looked at her, and I don't really remember what was going through my mind other than just seeing the priest there and super upset at him. And it wasn't his fault. He was doing his job. And they finally said, pull up a chair and sit down. You're welcome to stay here as long as you want with her, but just don't say nothing. And I'm like, okay. So I sat there and just stared at her. And I saw these tubes. And finally, after a couple of hours, the head nurses came and they explained to me, she has this tube here because her lung collapsed. She has this tube because this lung collapsed. She has this because she's not breathing on her own. So she's 100% dependent right now. So I was like, okay. And from then on out, it was a complete blur. When I had to leave without her, oh my God, the worst feeling ever, knowing that I was gonna go home to my other daughter and hug her because she was so excited to see mommy. Oh, I'm sorry. And leaving her at the hospital. Super unfair to me, very unfair. And
how long were you in the hospital? After they did the surgery and everything.
I was released, I think, 4 or 5 days later.
So 4 or 5 days later, you've got a daughter in NICU, and
she was born at 25 weeks, 5 days.
And you can't stay there because she's.
And I asked, can I sleep over? And they're like, they knew I wasn't mentally okay to be there and physically okay to be there. I couldn't even hold her. I couldn't touch her.
Do you mind if I show the picture that you sent me? This is when she was born immediately. This picture that I'm going to show.
Yes. Which one is it?
I don't know if you can see it. You can't see her face. It's being.
Is it a top view? Yes.
Yes.
That is, I believe, a day or 2 days after she was born.
It looks like her hand is not fully developed. Is that?
It's super. If I could explain to you how big her hand was, like a little bit bigger than a quarter, maybe a $50 or those bigger coins. Yeah, she was a pound.
A pound?
A pound.
Okay.
Yeah, she was a pound.
So you go home.
I go home.
Then what? What's the prognosis? What are they telling you? How long does she need to be here? What are you learning?
So they usually don't, because one thing they did tell me, and I'll always remember this, it's a roller coaster. She's doing great. she kind of plummeted. She's down here, not so great. We're going to give her more medications. We're just going to keep her stable. Miss Castillo, she's doing great, you know. So it's just, and it was a complete roller coaster. Great some days, horrible some days, okay some other days. And
are you allowed to go visit her at this
I
point?
was. Me and my husband were the ones that had 100% permission to go whenever we wanted, except for the, you know, the nurse's shift switching. We couldn't go. We couldn't be there.
What was his state of mind?
He was very quiet. He's not an emotional person. If he is, he doesn't know how to express it. We're completely opposite when it comes to expressing our emotions, and he didn't know how to be there. It was kind of just like, I'm in my own zone. Let me handle this the way I'm going to handle it.
Did he look worried?
Yeah. I mean, he had to stay strong because I was always crying, and we had our baby, and I didn't want her to see me crying, so I had to pick up as if nothing was wrong.
What's your first daughter's name?
Ana Lidia.
Was she asking Mom, where's my sister?
She would just kiss my belly and make fart noises, but she didn't. She wasn't. She wasn't like, Mommy, where? She wasn't even talking that much.
Sure.
She's a baby.
Yeah.
They're 11 months apart, to the day 11 months apart. So she was still going through her, I'm gonna be one, you know, the phase that the babies and toddlers go through, and I had to just shake it off, you know, set this aside, and Mommy's here. Don't worry, we're gonna have a good time, baby girl. You know, everything's okay. I would talk about her, and she would just say, baby, because I would show her the pictures. Yeah. But she was never like, where's baby sister? She was never like that.
She really wasn't old enough to comprehend what was going on.
No.
What were your parents going through, your family?
A lot. Seeing their daughter like that is... Sorry.
No, you're fine. Take your time.
My brothers are completely different people as well. So I had one that was like, you know, be strong, everything's okay. And then I had one that was like constantly trying to check up on me and, you know, more involved. My parents, my mom really went through it with me too. Yeah. She was the one I would contact all the time.
Now, you said you were angry. Were you praying to God at all at this point, or were you still angry? You had said, you know what, I'm done with this. This is what you've done to me. But your parents?
Honestly,
your mom,
oh no. She we didn't really tell a lot of people because I didn't want a lot of people to know. I didn't want a lot of people texting me, what happened? What's wrong? Are you okay? I didn't, at the time, I didn't want that.
Sure.
At the time, I didn't want that. And she had let a few people know from the church, and they set a whole prayer chain, and my mom would, she knew when I was okay enough to be like, hey, mija, Olivia said that she was going to pray the rosary for her tonight, and they have a candle lit up for her in the church. And then there was days where she wouldn't even mention it because she knew that I was just having a bad day, which I was having bad days all the time, but I just played it off better some days than others. But I had a lot of people praying for her and for me. Tons of people.
But you yourself couldn't.
I couldn't.
Yeah.
I was angry.
You had already lived the Acts retreat.
Yes. Yeah, and it was beautiful. The Acts retreat was beautiful, but...
For anyone who doesn't know, an Acts retreat is a retreat that is done in some of the Catholic churches throughout the country, I want to say. I don't know about throughout the world, but there's a lot of them that go on here locally. So just for anyone who does not know what an Acts retreat is. So despite having gone through that, and it's a life-changing experience for many, you just couldn't find yourself.
I couldn't. I stopped going to church. I barely started going again, honestly. I barely started getting back in touch with, you know, my religious side again. And my mom always tells me, there's a lot to be thankful for. Gracias a Dios, mija. Thank God. And I'm just kind of like, I know. But until I'm ready, that's whenever I'll really know. But, so days are going by. You're visiting on a daily basis? Every day. Every day.
At what point did you get a prognosis that said, okay, we are looking at a potential release?
Weeks before she was out. Because you don't make a promise, or you don't set a date of she'll be out in 2 months, because anything could happen. She's underdeveloped, extremely underdeveloped. So they start naming the whole, you know, the lung collapse, because she's going to have a chronic lung disease, a disorder because of this. She also has PDA, which she's currently still trying to overcome.
What
it's
is
a
PD?
patent ductus arteriosus. So we're born with, between the valves, we're born with an area that stays open, and while your heart and you grow inside the womb, days before being delivered or even days after you're delivered, it shuts. So the clean blood goes through one, the oxygenated blood goes through another, the whole circulatory system. Hers stayed open. So they had to inject her with a very strong drug and hoping that it would close. If it did, great, because she would not have, as much lung issues, a lot of congestion all the time, phlegm, fluid. It's fluid in your lungs where it shouldn't be. And the first time it was injected, they're only allowed to give it once because it's very strong. It closed very little. Like, great, that's great. And another medication you can use, I believe it's ibuprofen. And they said it was still open, but she was doing great. She was managing with it. Okay, great. Then she had another lung collapse. She has 2 on one side and 1 on the other.
Are the lungs developed at this point?
No, everything's underdeveloped. Literally,
so
everything.
How do they, you got to tell me here. What are they doing so that she can start to develop? What happens at this stage?
They keep her in the incubator. They keep her like if it was a womb.
Okay.
Minimal light, because the vision they have in the picture, I think you can see that she has, they look like little glasses because they can't see the light. No sound. And they're giving her medications and fluids as if she was taking from my umbilical cord, from her umbilical cord.
Had you ever known anybody that had gone through something like this?
My tia spoke about it to my mom, more into detail because she wouldn't speak about it to me because obviously I wasn't ready at the time. But she did say that, oh my God, Ogie, they're very tiny, But I don't know how long he lasted. I don't know the complete story, but the closest one would be my tia. And anybody else,
you really had no idea
I had no idea.
Like.
No.
How did you feel knowing that your daughter was right there
Oh,
and you couldn't hold her?
It's like being on a diet and you want your favorite food and you just can't. You're like, you smell it and you're like, okay, that's enough. It's like you're wanting something so bad and it's right there and you can't do anything about it. You're helpless, completely helpless. So I would just sing to her. I did start praying the Divine Mercy to her. Mm-hmm. And either I would put it in song because you couldn't talk. So I put it very, very quietly, or I would just whisper it to her. And she would move sometimes. And, some of the nurses would tell me, she's a kicker today, try to be positive. The nurses there were great. I'm forever going to be thankful for them, for assisting too. It wasn't just, not even sit here and say it was just God. Of course, it's medical too. Sure. So I'm forever grateful for them for helping and giving me the updates all the time. So we were allowed to call at whatever time of the day. I was waking up every 2 hours because I was also pumping to give her my breast milk. So I was waking up every 2 hours calling. And I would give my personal ID because you're the only one that's allowed to call. And how is she doing? Miss Castillo, she's sleeping. They couldn't say much, but at the time I was expecting them to be like, oh, she's great. Yeah. I was hanging on to that hope that she's doing great. Don't worry about it.
How much time would you spend every day there?
Between having to go back home and take care of my daughter, I would spend a couple of hours.
Yeah. Were you working at this time?
No.
No. Okay.
No, I couldn't. There was no way I was going to be able to.
But you had a job and then you had to quit or leave the job?
Thankfully, my boss is amazing.
Wow.
Ms. Rodriguez is amazing. She was like, take your time. You let us know when you're ready. Your job will be here.
Wow.
So that was like great because at the time you're thinking like, oh my God, money and the everything. The bills are still going to keep coming
Life
in.
Still has to be paid.
Life happens.
Yeah. And what about your husband? He was able to continue working?
Yeah, he was.
So he didn't spend as much time there as you did, I'm guessing.
No.
Okay.
Yeah, it was just mainly me, the majority of the time.
That must have been just excruciating. Talk to me about let's fast forward. Talk to me about when you were finally able to see her. What age?
I was able to hold her.
Yeah,
I was able to hold her a month into the NICU stay, which is I believe the other picture that I sent you.
Okay, that's why I was segueing. So this is at about 29 weeks.
Yes.
So this is you. This is the first time you hold her?
Yes.
Okay, so this is you holding little Andrea.
So
how
cute.
many pounds was she at this point?
A little over 1. Yeah, a little over 1. She fit into my bra right here.
Oh my God, I want to zoom in
Yes.
so they can see little Andrea.
She's so perfect.
Her eyes almost look like, when kittens and
Yes.
puppies are born and they're closed.
Even like the little lagañas there. Like.
Oh. So she's already at this point 29 weeks old. She's doing better at this point?
And she's still on oxygen. She was on oxygen till I think a few days before being released. So they go through levels. There's complete dependent, and then you go to high flow, and then CPAP and CPAP and all this medical jargon. And I just wanted to know when they were going to be taken off. And then you have to go through what she's getting fed through the nose. So now we're going to try feeding with the bottle. So it took what felt like forever.
Well, yeah.
To get her to even just grab my finger.
I gotta tell you, I have zero patience. I would have not been able to. I mean, this is a daily thing. There's steps that they have to take for her to be ready to even get to the point where you were holding her.
Able to hold her. And then I overheated her. I was like,
mean?
girl, what is going on? Do you want me to hold you or not?
So her body temperature
rose too much, yeah. I guess I was just nerves at the same time, but happiness. I was just so excited and, nervous, but I held her for a little bit, and I held her for over an hour, and they're like, okay, you're overheating her temperature. We need to put her back. And I'm like,
oh my gosh.
Okay.
Describe this moment for me. I'm going to show the picture again. You smiling and she's
I thought I was going to cry. I was like, for sure I'm going to cry. All my tears are going to, what if it gets into the pipe? And what if it gets into her nose? And what if she, my mind is always like going crazy. But when I held her, it was just like, it was meant for this day. She needed me right now. I needed this right now. This moment, nobody's taking it away from me. Put whatever you want around me. Just leave me here. And I didn't cry. And I was like, I just felt so at peace. And I think at that moment, I said, okay, she's okay.
Was this a turning point, you think? For you
think
personally?
So. Yes. And it always brings me back to when the priest was there. Mm-hmm. So, thankfully he did it. You ain't going nowhere, girl. You're staying with mommy. You're right here, and mommy's got you forever. I'm here. And it was just, that's how I felt. I'm here. This is mommy. Yeah. Feel my skin, smell me.
Just out of curiosity, did they know you were Catholic? Because I'm curious, why would they bring in a priest?
I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think that's actually required in medical forms, if I'm not mistaken.
Really?
Or maybe
so you might have put that in a form.
Yeah.
Okay. And I mean, because
But they did ask. They did let me know, hey, we have the priest here, and he was already in our little cubicle, section in the incubator. And I was like, okay.
That is, and this is a whole other conversation, but that's of extreme importance for Christians.
Yes.
For the baby to be baptized. At least for Catholics, I don't want to get into all that, but because I'm not 100% knowledgeable, but you would want your baby to be baptized because the belief that as a Catholic that you have is that if something would have happened, she would have gone to heaven.
Yeah, and I didn't want her to. I didn't want that.
And so how long after the 29 were you now at this point able to see her every day? Or
I was always able to see her every day. I wasn't just allowed to hold her every day because some days it was just like, ma'am, her oxygen is not keeping up,
So
we don't want to, no.
She's 29 weeks.
No.
Full term is how many weeks?
39.
So she still needs, 2.5 more months?
She was 3 months early.
Was she in the hospital 2.5 more months?
She was in the hospital 3 months to the day. Exactly 3 months she was released. She graduated at 3 months from the NICU. They used a Build-A-Bear graduation outfit.
Okay.
And they put that on her, and they're like, oh, they had a whole party for her. They were like, she was ready to go.
So after you held her, she had to stay 10 more weeks, basically. Yeah. So they waited the whole full term as if she would have been.
Yes, because that's usually when the babies are strong enough to break because if you think about it, they're in an incubator the entire time. Germs are everywhere, and they're trying to be completely germ-free there in the NICU. So, she went through multiple blood transfusions because she wasn't, where was the blood going? I don't know. It was just so much that happened inside there. And then, we have to insert a PICC line, which is the line that would go through here into the heart, I believe, to insert medication because her belly button, where she would get her nutrients through her umbilical cord, which was connected to the belly button, that was already rotting out. It was already getting infected. So if they kept it longer, there you go, another infection. So they told me about it and they were like, it's a tough procedure. Anything could happen because she's not able to withstand, being under anesthesia for so long without oxygen. So we really need to so I had to sign off on that too. Anytime I had to sign off on something, even the ROP exams, which were exams for her eyes to see if she was, they were developing normal. I was just like, why do I have to sign this? Why do I have to do this? I shouldn't have to do this type of feeling, but I still did it anyways. And I'm like, okay, because it's going to benefit her. Get over it, Rita. Do it it's going to benefit her. Don't put your emotions aside, kind of, and toughen up and do this for her because, she needs it.
So when you take her home, she's at the age where she should have been when you delivered her originally. So she's already been in the hospital for 3 months. What was that feeling like taking her home?
I was like, are you ready? Telling my daughter, are you ready? We're going to go pick up sister, we're ready. And my husband too. And I was already calling since the morning. They're like, Miss Castillo, we have to go through a whole process. You can't just be like, she's ready.
Here for 3 months. There's a little bit of a process here.
So you come in first and then we'll send you back home. And I'm like, no. I'm going with her. I'm not coming back. So, they finally went over, and the particular nurse, Miss Marisela Rodriguez, God bless her. I love her. She's amazing. She really helped me through it as well. She was the one that was educating me on everything. So they have to go through multiple things to get out, right? They have to do the car seat test, which was they sit in a car seat for so long to see if they can withstand the body position, their oxygen levels, are they strong enough to even go home in a car seat. So she had to pass all these exams to get out, and I finally signed it was like buying a car or something. I was like, yes, gonna take it for a spin, let's go. And I signed off, and I told the husband, and we brought our daughter. We're like, should we take her? Should we not? Let's take her. So my husband was the one to go up and bring her, and I stayed in the car with my daughter, and tons of breast milk. And because also she developed NEC stage 1, which is necrotizing. I think it's a necrotizing, going blank. It's whenever the intestines are dying, basically. It's like an infection. Okay. So she overcame that. That was another thing she overcame. And turns out it was some of my breast milk's fault. Okay. So it's like, great. First, my body did what it did, and now my breast milk is not healthy for the baby, and it's supposed to be the healthiest thing in the world for your child. So I would still pump. And
August is National Breastfeeding Month, by the way.
Yes, and I shared some stuff.
So how many times after you left the hospital did you have to go back? Was she done at that point?
Done.
I mean, she was done.
I've got invited to go back, and I'm always like, yeah, I'll go. When should I take her?
Visit?
Yes, and then I kind of like, I'm not ready for that. No, I get scared. Like, what if I have to leave her there for something? I feel like they're going to find something else. Like, your daughter doesn't look normal today. Let's keep her. No, stay away. So I haven't gone. But she does have her monthly visits with JustGo, the high risk.
Okay.
And they just make sure that her mainly nutrition and growth is normal. And she's growing.
Where was this? Which hospital?
It's behind Doctor's Hospital.
Behind Doctor's Hospital. So it was Doctor's Hospital, but the Women's Center or a different?
No, I go to, it's like a plaza. I think it's called Medical Plaza.
But here in Laredo?
Yes, here in Laredo.
That's where she was in the NICU?
She was in the hospital, Doctor's Hospital in the NICU. And then once she was out, they give me, a list of, here are the ophthalmologists because, her vision. Mm-hmm. Here is the cardiologist because of her heart. Mm-hmm. Here is the high-risk doctor to make sure that her nutrition is good and she's growing at a good rate. If not, there's some adjustments that need to be made. So every doctor's visit to this day, I hate it.
What became of the cysts?
When I went for my checkup, they were non-cancerous.
Okay.
So when I found that out, I remember going to my husband. I'm like, get me out of here. I started having a panic attack. And I was like, you need to take me out of here. I was ready to take off my shirt. I couldn't breathe. What happened? I let them know about it. And I was like, it's non-cancerous. But the fact that I had them scares me. So, I have history through family with cancer. So I'm just like, I ended up going to the chapel at St. Patrick's. They just take me to a chapel. I'm just going to thank God about it. And okay, we'll do whatever you need to do. My husband, he was like, what can he do?
Yeah.
It's not like he can, go in there and heal me on the inside and be like, okay, you're healed completely.
But it sounds like he did what
He
was
was,
best.
he just, what do you want me to do? Just take me somewhere. Take me away from here. And yeah, they explained about it. It had it's a teratoma. So it had teeth and hair, my cysts. It's crazy. I know.
What do you
It's
what
a
do you
kind
mean?
of cyst. I think it's called teratoma.
Teeth and hair?
And it had teeth and hair in it.
I
They're common if you look it up. It's a teratoma.
okay.
They're
Rita-
derived from germ cells. It's
Okay.
weird.
Wow.
It's
Did you ever get a reason as to why you gave birth at 25 weeks?
just the
Or you had to
placenta
give birth?
abruption.
I mean, you knew the reason. I mean, the why it happened. Well, you know what the cause was, but you don't know what led to the cause,
No.
basically.
And I was working. I had a Suburban. Was that it? Going up and down? Because you know how they say, be careful,
Yeah.
no up and down or none of that. And
So you're trying to look for every reason
I'm
possible
trying to
as
look
to why this
for,
happened.
yes.
Rita, how old is Andrea now?
She is going to be 2 in October.
No.
She's
Okay,
thriving.
I'm gonna show her a picture. And when I saw it, I wanted to cry.
oh, my baby.
This is little Andrea. Those cheeks.
La bailadora. My grandpa used to call me that. She's full of life, Ruben.
Wow. She
Full of it.
overcame quite a bit. So did you. You overcame quite a bit. As a mother, I don't think there are very few people in this world that can understand what you went
Yeah.
through. So she look at her. She's healthy today.
She's healthy. She still has a PDA, so we still have to be, in touch with her cardiologist. She's gonna go. I think it's during September, October. Yes, September, October to see if it's closed, and if it isn't, they're gonna discuss surgery again to go in there and put like a stent to close it. Some people live with it. You could be living with it right now.
Really?
Yes, some people live with it. So I'm like, and
Wow.
should I
So
do it?
then
Should I
other
not do
than that,
it?
I mean,
Other than that, she loves fajitas, ribs, frijoles,
She's from South Texas,
tortillas.
that's for
She
sure.
loves it. She loves music.
I wanna. Oh, really? I
Loves
wanna
it.
just show again. This is little Andrea at 25 weeks, and this is a show about miracles. So not a lot, I think, needs to be said. I think the pictures say everything. This is little Andrea at 25 weeks, and this is Andrea now. That's. I mean, if that's not a miracle, I don't know what is, Rita. But do you believe that it's a miracle?
Yes.
Yeah. Why?
Between the medical aspect of it and my religious, everybody's entitled to their own opinion, their own religion. He was there the entire time. He was the one that said, as many times I wanted to give up. My daughter was there too, my husband, my family, my mom, my brothers. And she was there. And she coded on me once. She wanted to leave once when I was holding her. Thankfully, and every time that something bad happened, my mom was there. Thank God, my mom.
So coded means she basically died.
Yeah, she wasn't breathing. And the monitors would go off and they're like, oh, let her catch her breath again, because she was so underdeveloped that her brain couldn't tell her system, you need to breathe, girl, wake up.
Yeah.
There was no connection there yet. So that day, I remember my mom was like, let me drive. I'm like, nope. And I was just praying the entire time. And I'm like, thank God that you brought her back. Thank God. They took her away from me real quick. They started working on her in there, and they're like, I think she's okay, but I think you should go home, because you being here crying hysterically is not going to help her. It's not helping yourself. You're the mom. You need to be okay, because if you're not okay, she's not going to be okay. So
Part of the miracle is the people that were put in your life,
Yes.
the medical
Yes.
team, the everyone that was involved. They were
Everyone.
all created by God. All of the technology was created by people who were created by God. So you can say, oh, well, that's medical technology today, but that's from God. All of that is from God.
How did the nurse that was at the X retreat was the one to wake me up and let me know? Out of all the nurses that it could have been, it was her.
Has your faith been restored at this point?
Yes. So most recently, I was talking to my mom about it, and I talked to my good friends about it too, and they always tell me, whenever you're ready, Rita, whenever you're ready. I finally told my mom, and I was like, I call her Ritas. I'm like, Ritas, let's baptize Andrea. Let's do it. And mija, okay, let me go with it. That same weekend, she gave me about a dress. She bought the dress, the shoes. Like, let me talk to the priest. That we're gonna do it, and I'm gonna complete her baptism. It's not complete yet, but it will be. I feel like I'm ready now for it.
You mentioned to me that you hadn't told the story yet, really publicly.
No, I tried, but I failed tremendously.
You've done very well right now.
Thank you.
I mean, you really have. Honestly, we didn't talk a lot. I mean, the purpose was to just get you in here and tell the story. And you mentioned that you were a little concerned because you hadn't told the story, but you told it wonderfully. And I know that you provided hope for many other women.
I hope so, because I hope that this also, a mom that is already pregnant or wants to get pregnant, get checked when you need to get checked. If you feel like something's wrong, don't wait. I mean, maybe some of the doctors will be like, it's just, no, do it because you feel like you need to do it. So, and
what now?
Now
just
she's gonna.
Life is normal.
Life is never normal anymore with these girls.
That's true.
I have
How old
two.
Is
Analia's
right?
gonna be 3. Okay,
okay, never mind.
Andrea's gonna be 2 in October. Wow. Analia's gonna be 3 in November. They're 11 months apart. Yeah. So they are just I call them the Twisted Sisters or Castillo Sisters, las hermanitas Castillo.
They look similar. We don't have a picture, but I think they look similar.
They say that. I don't see it.
Really?
Yeah,
they look like you. Sorry.
Oh, thank you. I cannot wait for him to see.
Sorry, Roberto.
Love it.
That's. I mean, it's an amazing story, Rita, and I mean, thank you for sharing. Honestly, thank you for sharing. And I mean, if you don't mind me asking, you're back at church.
Yes, I'm going back to church, gonna finish her baptism. I'm back at work. I actually went to work, I think 2 months in her stay. I went back to work because mentally I was not okay at home. I just needed to get out and go back to my routine and make it seem normal enough for me to be like, it's all good, it's gonna be okay. So I went back.
And I know that there's a lot that you didn't say. I mean, because it was a long process, but you summed it up very well. And the end result was a beautiful baby girl who overcame a lot, just like her mom, to be this little Andrea. She's so cute.
She's so
I can't with the cheeks.
I should have brought her. I should have brought her.
Yeah, you should have. But it's you mentioned you said I may not be able to concentrate on telling the story, and you were right. I think it was the right decision. Yeah. But people can ask you to meet her. They can say, "Can we meet little Andrea?" And now you can share this with her later on.
Oh, yes.
Or if anybody asks, just watch the show.
Let's watch the show.
I don't want to explain it to you. Will you start to talk about it more after this airs?
I think so. Yeah. It feels good. I feel like a little weight is lifted off my shoulders. Like, I won't cry as much. I thought I was going to cry way more. So I was like, give me a box of tissues. It'll probably be done by the time we're done.
You did well.
But, yeah.
Rita Castillo on In Search of Miracles. Her daughter was born prematurely at 25 weeks. Full term is 39.
39 weeks.
And this is what she looked like. Right there. This was the first time Rita got to hold her. At 29 weeks?
Yeah, around that time.
And this is Andrea now. That's a miracle. Yes, Rita, thanks for sharing. God bless you.
Thank you.